Okay, welcome to the Stampscapes lab. This is a large format scene that was created in the Friday Night live stream this past week. And what I've done here, what I was mentioning to people in the live stream is that I really needed to work on this a little bit more. It didn't have the spirit of kind of what I was going after. I still like the look, but it was a little bit ominous looking with these really dark clouds up here. Maybe I should have stamped them in a lighter tone up there. But being that we've gone really dark in here to kind of bring out the lighter elements within here, a lot of the shadow areas got really toned in. So what I want is the thing that I'm missing in here. It's not so much really specifics in terms of something to do with imagery or color, but it's just I want more of a lighter kind of feel to this piece, just to contrast against these darker areas in here. Okay, now we've gone really dark with some rich tones in the shadow areas. Okay, but they've gone to kind of the darker mid values too dark. All right, now, so what I've done here since that live stream is I've stamped some overhanging foliage in here just to create a little bit of a different texturing from the existing clouds up here. Just because this is such a large format scene, there was a lot of monotony and repetition of form going on up in certain areas. So what you do is you can break it up a little bit just with some additional form, and it also represents something a little bit closer. You can't really see the branches in here too much. You can see it with the glare on there. But having it come out in here like over the moon really works to just break this up a little bit more and to create extra depth. And then these trees here in the foreground, these pine trees down here, they're really dark. You can see it right here, but I've put them across in here just to break up this rock in here. That was this whole section right here, and to create extra depth. But what these darker elements do on the perimeter like this is to frame off the scene a little bit more, to create a little bit more visual containment for this really large scene like this, and just to bring everything in a little bit more. It makes the scenes, no matter how large they are, a little bit more intimate by closing off the areas around the side. And again, it's for kind of visual containment and to bring the viewer's attention into the scene. You want to kind of have them compelled to be pulled into the scene and to wander about like that. And if you kind of darken in the edges like that, it doesn't seem so kind of wide open. Their focus of their visual focus is a little bit more contained and directed by us as a I don't know, whatever, a visual guide. Okay, so that being said, we've gone really dark in some of these areas, but I want to lift the spirit of the piece quite a bit more. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I think the way to do that is to create extra light in certain areas. Okay, I don't want to illuminate areas completely, but we can do a lot of things. So if this was an open sky up here, we can do things like stars in the sky, and it brings light into those darker areas. Okay, there's so much glare on here. I've sprayed this piece with a Krylon spray fixative, and it really enhanced a lot of the colors in here, and it brought out some of the tones more in the spirit of like a freshly stamped image where the inks are kind of wet and really saturated looking. When it dries, it can dry a little bit dull, especially if you've used a lot of different media on there, and certain types of inks just have a tendency of drying dull, certain brands, okay? And if you just spray it, you can usually reclaim kind of the look of a freshly applied ink. It's nice and glossy and deep. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, first of all, I want to add a little bit more tone into my larch trees. And when I was applying some of the acrylic paints while everything was still wet, including acrylic paints over acrylic paints. It was kind of mixing and blending with the colors that had already been laid down. But once you spray seal it, you lock down everything that has already been applied, and then you can apply a fresh coat of another type of media, and especially a wet media where it's not going to blend in physically with the media on the base layers. Okay. All right, so going in here, just kind of, this is adding a little bit more texture into the piece too. I wanted to go for a little bit more of this reddish tinge on some of these items in here, areas, or objects, I should say, with these large trees. The large trees can have a kind of a wide array of colors during certain times of year, fall when it's the leaves are turning. And I don't know, it's a little bit too, I don't know, maybe a little bit too conservative with my usage of color on them. I mean, I like the way they look now, but I just wanted to go more in the deeper reddish tones like this. Okay, so I'm largely adding it kind of in the darker areas, and this is kind of center lighting here. So on the trees to the left of the scene, I'm putting most of the shadows on the right, the left side of the tree, because this is going to be a darker color, and then the trees to the right of the lighting. The darker reds are on the right side of the tree. Now up here you can say, I don't know, the light's coming from above, so maybe I'm putting a little bit more reddish tinges like on the base of the tree, base and right. Yeah, I mean you need a little bit on both, sides. You don't want to have just one color on one side, another color on the other side. That would look kind of weird. But you can kind of emphasize or reiterate lighting with your coloring that you're doing. Okay. All right, so there's some red right there. I'm kind of deciding if I want to use orange on here. Maybe we do go for a little bit of that. I think the red looks pretty good on there. Now, there was already some red on there, but again, it really blended with those bottom layers. Now, we could say that maybe I should spray seal this and spray seal in the red that I just laid down, because chances are this orange might blend with some of that red, but I don't think I'm going to do that right now. But that's what that spray fixative is for. You can work in layers, okay? You can lock down layers and can continue to add additional media on top. It's usually dry media, not wet media. Like acrylic paint. It's usually things like pastels and charcoals and chalks with the spray fixatives. But, when this dries, you can certainly spray seal it and get those colors really locked down. All right, so I'm getting there. It's kind of like livening up a little bit. It might be getting a little bit too light, we might say, but when we're going to bring in some extra lights in here in the form of some fireflies, and that should just kind of bring out everything in here a little bit more, a lot more, hopefully. Okay, we're going for some yellow in here. Yellow really stands out in terms of contrast, so in some ways you got to be a little bit careful about your application of this at this point in time. I have a feeling I'll be able to add in quite a bit more and have it not look too awkward once I add in these fireflies in the landscape. There's this tree right here in the background that I didn't get. Let's go ahead and fill that in a little bit. This is just a Prismacolor pencil. This is a semi-gloss cardstock here, so I can't get too much of this laid down, especially after spray sealings. Spray fixatives do have a it does have a texture once it's laid down. That's what allows for applications of dry media over the top of it, like, those charcoals and pastels. And therefore you can, put a little bit of a colored pencil laid down. But, if you're doing that, just make sure it's on this type of cardstock, a fairly soft style of colored pencils. Some pencils are a little bit harder in terms of their consistency. I keep going back in here and tweaking things. The colors as the paints as they dry, they might change a little bit. And as I'm adding this down, sometimes it's kind of a little bit, you're looking at it a certain way, but then you kind of let it set a little bit, and you can make your kind of assessment of what you want to do. Like see over here, there's all that yellow's on the right side of that tree, which looks a little bit imbalanced. So I'm kind of adding a few more just to kind of even it out a little bit more. Not just in terms of a little bit of texture, I guess. Texture and light. All right, but I think that is it right in there. All right, so let's go in and have some fun with this. Let's add in all these little fireflies into this landscape, and we'll see if we can kind of illuminate some certain areas. It brings like a certain element that's like, it looks like it's hovering or something like that. So you got these little things kind of hovering in the air, and it can potentially kind of lift everything up in terms of the spirit of the piece as well. So it's like these things, that represent things that are flying and floating. Okay, so it can do the same thing from a kind of an emotional standpoint in terms of us looking at the piece. All right, I'm going to pause for a minute here. I'm going to take a look at some photos of some firefly scenes or photographs. Okay, I've referenced some photos. I have a little bit of this dull yellow pigment ink. As you can see, it's like almost brand new. I've barely ever used it, but I think I might be able to get a little bit of a kind of a warm glow around some of the fireflies that I add in here. I don't know. A lot of times I always have to go to white. But one of the things I was looking at was kind of night photos of fireflies, and there was some green kind of coloration in the landscape. It's probably like AI generated photographs or something like that, so it's not really a true light, but it still looks really cool. So I'm going to go in and add in some of this lime green tone right in here, and you can see it's a little bit lighter and warmer in terms of that color right in that landscape. I'm going to add some right back in here too, I think. Just some kind of brighter colors, just to kind of lift the piece a little bit. It's doing it kind of in a subtle way, like right back in here. I don't know, it really kind of glows a little bit more, but see this tone right here? That's like a nothing area. So let's go and add a little bit of color, and it's not bright, but it's brighter. than what it was like right back in there. So I think that's a pretty good addition. We have this kind of warmth right here on the shoreline. I guess what we've done is we've made it a little bit more of a grassy shoreline. Okay, so these are all rocks in here, but we can say that they're kind of moss-covered rocks. So we can bring a little bit of this tone right into the near shoreline, like this. Especially if we've retained some of the lighter tones on those rocks, okay? But even in these darker tones right here, we'll go in here like this. Maybe in some of this tree right here even. And see, I think that looks pretty decent. It's a little bit of a greenish tinge right here to kind of mirror that far shoreline. Or to relate to it, it doesn't really mirror it because it's a lot darker. But again, that little bit of warmth in there, I think, is pretty effective, okay? Got a lot of glare there. Yeah, it's coming to life, I think. Okay, so let's see. Let's do this too. Okay, so I've added some of this in really subtle ways in here before, but I think it's time to get a little bit more bold in here with those. Okay, I was going to go to do those fireflies, but I think adding some of this down here is kind of adding to the the color scheme and I guess the intensity range of certain areas within the piece. So let's do that a little bit more. Some more blue tones up there in the sky, like that, like a baby blue. And let's see, let's add a little bit more in here. This is it's kind of a jeweled looking, slightly warm tone blue. That really you can add into a lot of different scenarios, color scenarios, and it looks really good. This one's called Aquamarine. Okay, I think that is sufficient right there. Again, without that glare, it looks like that. It's starting to come alive, I think. Okay, so with these fireflies, I think I'm going to go for some larger dots here in the foreground, and I'll go for some smaller ones in the background. Okay, let's get rid of a couple of these pens here that I've already used. I think we're done with this red colored pencil. But we do have this white here. We'll see if we need that. But let's see how this goes here. Okay, so I'm going to try to group. I'm looking at my screen here in terms of some of the photographs that I've seen. So let's see. Let's just go and add them in like so. You don't have to make them in or do them in the same size either. And I'm not going to put them up high on the trees either, because they don't seem to kind of hover around like that. But look at that kind of like lighting coming in there like that. It's kind of bringing that area to life, isn't it? Like right in here. Okay. And let's see. I'm really tempted to use some of these in the distance right in here too, but yeah, well, let's go ahead and do that. I'll just put kind of a more delicate dot down, okay, to keep it a little bit smaller. Flipping this upside down so I can access this from this side. Because these dots are still a little bit wet right there. I don't want to put my hand in them. So it's kind of little dots in the, I don't know, whatever, the base of the trees. It's just kind of bringing things to life a little bit. It's like nature's Christmas lights or something. I'm seeing some trees that I missed in here that probably need a little bit of tone that I'll add to. Alright, kind of bringing the area to life again a little bit. I'll put some of these like down here in the water as well. Like maybe there's some reflections. The foreground area, I'm adding them, like I said, a little bit larger. All right. So I'm kind of bringing it to life a little bit. I don't know if I need to go with the 0.7. The 3 millimeter worked pretty good overall. Although this one's a lot more delicate, so you can add more subtlety in the background, I guess. Yeah, actually, this one looks really good in there. It's just kind of for some tighter, little detailed marks in the background. And plus, it's just really fun to add these little dots into the mix because they really stand out, and it just looks better. It's just like I said, it's like adding like Christmas lights over everything or under anything. All right. It's like that. I'm going to see if I can do something on these, some of these in the foreground. I'm going to see if I can add a little heart of a little bit of a lighter area within the dot. So it looks like the yellow is kind of the glowing portion of it. And it also kind of separates these dots from, the highlighting on the trees, the coloring on the trees. And it looks like this is working pretty good. The dots, these little fireflies in person here look a little bit different, I think. I don't know how it's going to dry. It might dry and it looks, it's like no difference at all, but there's like some little subtle little things that you can do sometime that are, again, they're just kind of fun to do, these little details like this. Let's see if I can add it to some of these ones in the background. I don't know if it's noticeable, again, like at all. Okay. Looks like pretty decent, I think. Let's see what we can do here, and let's see if this yellow pigment ink really is effective at all. We'll apply it with a cotton swab. And see this, we're making like a couple of these kind of glow a little bit more. See the difference between this one and this one? You don't want to do it with a real wet applicator, okay? You want to make sure that it's kind of a dry, dry brush kind of approach to it. But look at that glowing light like that. And I mean, you could do it on a lot of these, but I tend to think that it looks a little bit more kind of effective if you have some that are glowing and some that aren't, just to create a little bit of textural difference, variation within those forms, just because there's so many of them. So you make some of them glow like that. And they contrast against some of them that aren't. So some are like a crisp light and some of them are a very soft light. By having some still a little crisp, it makes the softer ones look even softer. Again, by contrast, okay? See that little light like right in there even? But yeah, look at these lights in here. Okay, let's put some right back in here in the background, okay? I put a lot of paint on these trees and it's a little bit sticky. So be careful, try to be careful not to put my hand into it. See if you can see that. See, yeah, like, see that one, that one, that one. A couple more right there, kind of glowing. Right over here. So I think I made a couple of these glow right back in there, but not too many because they're so far away. These ones right here, there. there and there. And then I did a couple down here in the water as well. Let's do a couple more in those without water area, just to get it kind of a little bit of textural variation. All right, I think that should do it here. I'm looking at these clouds though, and I want to. Already did add quite a bit of white pigmenting to them before, but I think I want to add another layer in there because some of it, my white pigmenting application, some of it disappears a little bit when you if you put a pretty thick layer of spray fixative over the top of it, any kind of sealant like that, it can kind of de-emphasize some of the applications, the lighter applications of lighter tones on darker, and like white pigment ink, it doesn't get very. White pigment ink just kind of applied very lightly on top of dark. It's about as thin and delicate of a light over dark as you can get. So we'll go with another layer like this. And you can keep spray sealing and locking down, adding more, and really build it up. And it can look, a little bit more dimensional with each step. I guess at some point in time it can, go a little bit too much. But for a few layers, it's really good to, it's a good option for us if we want to add to it. I usually don't go like layer upon layer upon layer. Just due to time and, I don't want to work on, certain scenes. I'm ready to go to the next scene a lot of times. So, okay, I'm going a little bit lighter down here in this reflection area. Oh yeah, I forgot about some of these trees back in here. Maybe add a little bit of tone to them. So I'm kind of going over some of these trees with this pigmenting too. Adding a little bit of fog right around this cabin right here. Or mist. Like that. See, it kind of gives it a little bit more kind of atmospheric punch. Like that. Adding a little bit more down here. Kind of like, it's like sculpting the area a little bit more, putting some of this light tone over it. See, this like right in here, it gets a little bit boring. So let's add a little bit of fog in there to maybe bisect that dark application or shape right in there from the shadow. So you're just kind of going over some of it. You don't want to eradicate it because you put a shadow in there because you want it to be darker, but maybe it looks a little bit too kind of monotonous like that. So you add in that little tone like that. kind of a little bit back in there. I'm kind of adding, and then I'm also kind of wiping some off as I add it. It's like added a little bit too much. And we have our little spectator here. And she observes the lights. Maybe we'll put a little bit of a fog around her. Or this night mist. Like that a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. This pigmenting doesn't dry so fast that you can't just kind of wipe off a little bit of it. Or a lot of it, before it dries. Putting a little bit right around that tree. See that right there? All right. We have our magical larch firefly night right here. Night lights. All right, so anyway, let's see. What I'll probably do is I'll let this dry a little bit and I'll spray seal it. And I'm going to mount this onto a larger piece and then kind of frame it off a little bit with a little bit of white on here. This is really large, so I don't have like two-tone colors that I can lay around it, which would have been nice, but I don't know. It's fun working in large formats like this because you can really kind of emphasize a certain type of thing that you're going after, and I think this firefly kind of illuminated night here. Well, it's really illuminated more from that full moon, but kind of in all the shadows like this. It's definitely these little wild fireflies that are kind of making the scene, I think. All right, so anyways, thanks for checking out this kind of second part of this scene right here. The tweaks, which can make all the difference here, even though they're, for the most part, they're kind of small additions, but certainly a pretty big textural addition, textural and, I guess, lighting addition to the scene. So, yeah, it makes all these areas really fun. And one of the big things, I'm always talking about this in my workshops, but I mean, not workshops, but the videos, live streams, is that if there, you might get to a certain point in a scene and think that you have, I don't know, not really got what you were kind of going after. It might have changed, you might have had to change kind of strategies based on kind of an initial concept. I usually don't have too strong of a concept. On this one I did, as far as the trees went, and I wasn't thinking about fireflies or something like that, but I just got really kind of dark in some areas, and these little areas like this, I think it looks even better now than, I don't know, in some certain areas than what I was initially thinking of. So you can do these little tweaks like this. And for me, it's often the acrylic paint pens and the lighter pigment inks. This is the first time I've used yellow pigment ink before for fireflies, and I think it looks pretty good. It doesn't look yellow. It doesn't look like it's glowing yellow. It almost looks like it's white. But I guess it's just a warmer, kind of a lighter tone around those like that. And I think this 3mm worked really good for kind of the most visual of the fireflies like that, because it kind of goes down in it kind of leaves a paint, but then it kind of separates a little bit with a little bit of ball, a balled up area of it, like with one dot. It's not like this uniform dot, but that served us well for these fireflies like that because it looked like a little kind of center area that was a little bit more defined. And then the area around it is a little bit more watery, I guess, because acrylics are a water-based paint. Okay, so anyways, thanks again for watching and hope to see you on the next video.